In order to understand Frederick William Wallace, really we have to focus on his father. And there is an early image in the exhibit of Frederick William Wallace's father in 1880 aboard the Agnes Sutherland in San Francisco Harbor. William Wallace, the father, was raised on a farm in Scotland, but at a young age ran away, went to sea. It's a boy's own annual kind of story. Worked his way up from apprentice seaman to ultimately become a captain in one of the finest steamship lines of the era, the Allen steamship line, operating out of Glasgow. William Wallace, or Frederick William Wallace, his son, grew up in Glasgow, in sight of the docks, watching his father's vessels come in and go out. His boyhood friends were all, their fathers worked in the business of seafaring. And there was nothing more that young Fred wanted to do than grow up and become a rugged seaman himself. But a number of things stood in the way. One was that he had a relatively delicate constitution as a young child. Two, his parents didn't want him to go into seafaring. Instead, they actually sent him to a good school in the hope that he would become an architect. And three, the way of life of the square rigger was disappearing by 1900, by the time that Frederick William Wallace had grown into manhood, and that way of life had disappeared. And much to his frustration, he found himself working as a clerk for the Allen Steamship Company line, and then when the family moved to Montreal, about 1904, he became a clerk for an insurance company. This was not the life that he had planned. His imagination took over. He began to write short stories, poems, sea shanties, but all of these were based on his father's experience. It was a kind of vicarious life. But in the midst of doing this work as a journalist now, he found he was invited by Alfred H. Britton, the managing director of the Maritime Fish Corporation, to go and see a schooner race in Digby, Nova Scotia, 1911. He goes down. He sees the race, he's on board one of the racing vessels, and he sees men living the life that he had been led to respect. He sees them living a life wind and sail, and he wants nothing more than to join them. And with Alfred H. Britton asking the captain, please can he go, the captain agrees to take this city slicker on a voyage, and quickly Wallace proves to the men that he is himself. He knows the ropes, he literally knows the ropes. He knows the jargon of sailing. He's willing to turn out with anybody at the middle of the night to either bring in dories, to haul in sail. He is willing to do whatever the captain asks. And over the coming years, a succession of captains will ask him to participate in their schooner voyages, and he will go as an active member of the crew. And these voyages therefore help him prove himself in the only way he knew to prove himself, and that is by sailing the way his father had.